I welcome the response.
Nikki Kay.
Mr Chair, look, I'm very pleased to take a call on this legislation. Can I start by acknowledging the previous speaker, actually, Ms Ardern, because I want to address some comments that she previously made and just deal with the issue of delegations. So, as has already been canvassed, there's nothing in the bill that will change the Crown's power to contract. That has always been there. So I want to just address Ms Ardern's comments in regard to that. But what is really important is that the Select Committee was quite clear, and I think it's been a point that's been missed by Ms Ardern and Mr O'Connor, in terms of the extensive controls in this area. It requires a responsible minister's prior written consent in every case. It prevents any sub-delegations. It requires conflicts of interest to be avoided or managed, requires delegates to comply with the State Services Code of Conduct, makes delegates subject to the Official Information Act and Ombudsman Act, and requires the delegation to be reported to Parliament. So what I won't accept is comments by speakers on this side of the House trying to imply that this hasn't been thought through incredibly carefully in terms of delegations. The second point that was made by Ms Ardern in particular was around government workforce policy. So this bill will establish a new simple process for consulting on and distributing workforce policy to public service departments and Crown entities. That's very important, and I think it is important as well for members opposite, and I know they're not listening now because they don't want to hear what's actually within the legislation, and that is that the bill ensures that the workforce policy statements will not be regulations and cannot override any legal rights or obligations, including any relating to good faith bargaining. So in terms of answering, and then the final point that I just want to touch on, which was raised by Mr O'Connor, was around that immunity in terms of public servants. And obviously I don't intend to comment on some of the substance. I don't agree with a number of assertions that he's just made in the House, and there is a review underway in terms of the recent situation in terms of meat, and he's made a number of assertions which I don't agree with. But what I would say is what this bill does, and it's incredibly important, and if there's one thing that I've learnt as a minister in the last 4 months, are some of the outstanding public servants that we have in New Zealand. Well, some of the outstanding public servants that we have in New Zealand, and that it's really important that this bill implements the original policy intent that public servants will have immunity from legal action for good faith action taken in pursuit of their duties. And I'm not going to comment specifically on the issues that he has raised regarding the subject of meat because he knows there's a review underway. But what I would say to him, and I would say in relation to this bill, is that member knows better than any other food producer in this country that when you are trading with 50% of your exports, there will always be food issues. So what I would say to the member is he knows in this bill not only are there substantive provisions around the delegations, they are comprehensive, but then secondly, he also knows that there is a clear immunity for public servants in this legislation. So I appreciate taking the call on this bill.
Members, we move to the vote on Part 1. First, we have the Minister's amendments as set out on SOP number 262. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The next amendments in the name of Te Aroha Flavel is to Clause 5 set out on SOP number 259. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party votes called for. I'll ask the clerk to conduct a party vote. Order.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
33 votes in favour.
Green Party.
13 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
7 votes in favour.
Māori Party.
2 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote in favour.
Action New Zealand.
1 vote opposed.
Honourable Peter Dunn.
1 opposed.
Brendan Horan.
1 in favour.
A point of order from Barbara Stewart.
Can I please change our vote to 7 votes opposed, please?
Yep, 7 opposed. Now, order. Votes are taken in silence. Thank you. Members, the ayes are 50, the noes are 68. The amendments are not agreed to. The next amendments in the name of Denise Roach is set out on SOP number 265. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party votes called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
33 votes in favour.
Green Party.
13 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
7 votes in favour.
Māori Party.
2 votes opposed.
Mana. Act New Zealand.
1 vote opposed.
Honourable Peter Dunn.
1 opposed.
Brendan Horan.
1 in favour.
Members, the ayes are 55, the noes are 63. The amendments are not agreed to. The question now is that Part 1 is amended stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. We now move to debate on Part 2. The question is that Part 2 stand part. This is debate on clauses 58 to 146B and Schedules 1A to 3A. The Honourable David Cunliffe.
Mr Chairman, I rise to convey Labour's support for this part of the bill, and in doing so, sir, wish to tender an apology to you and to the House. Sir, in my initial remarks on Part 1, I made the misplaced comment that Part 1 was the most